Welcome to Car and Driver. This is a Mazda CX-90 that we've driven for 40,000 miles. For those unfamiliar with our long-term test program, we aim to do that many miles in about a year or so to simulate what your new car might be like to live with for the first couple of years of ownership. We want to highlight the entire ownership experience, from the driving to the service, the maintenance, the good, the bad, and everything in between. We also want to treat these vehicles the way their actual owners might. So for this mid-size 3-row SUV, that meant commuting to work, doing the shopping, and lots and lots and lots of family road trips. Let's get into how it did. We actually started this test with a different CX-90. Early on, that one was involved in an accident and had to be replaced, so we got this replacement. It's identical in all the ways that matter: trim level, powertrain, mission, but there are a few minor differences that don't really matter. As for what we got, this is a Turbo S Premium Plus, and that means a bunch of different things, of course. It has the optional carpeted floor mats for $325 and the towing package for $900, and that brought the total price to about $62,500. Now, the Turbo S part of the name means it has the most powerful version of the 3.3-liter straight six, and that gives you 340 horsepower when you have premium fuel, 319 horsepower when you put in 87 octane. Lesser powerful Mazda CX-90s get 280 horsepower regardless of the fuel you put in the tank, but I digress. The Premium Plus part of the name means it has all the options and all the trimmings, and it was a very plush, nice interior that includes second row heating and ventilation, and just a very attractive, thoughtful cabin that we'll get into. That plushness combined with the size, the space, and 3 rows of seating made this a favorite for long distance driving. We loved the cargo space. This area can fit 16 carry-ons behind the second row. When you put up the third row, that number drops to 3 because physics, you know. But we also like the space of the second row. It's very spacious in there. You could fit full size or even, let's say, plus size adults. At nearly 20 gallons, the fuel tank allowed for over 400 miles of cruising between fill-ups, and that's great on long-distance drives. We also achieved 30 mpg during our 75-mile-an-hour highway fuel economy test, which is among the best we've seen from this class. This also towed well, including an 800-mile stint with a nearly 2-ton trailer. With the tow package, the CX-90 can tow up to 5,000 pounds, and in the real world, it felt totally competent at doing that job. We also have to give credit where it's due. After nearly 40,000 miles, this interior still looks and presents really well, despite hard use from the various families we have at the office. Considering that the pricing spectrum of the CX-90 overlaps segment staples like the Kia Telluride, the Toyota Grand Highlander, and the Honda Pilot, this interior, in terms of presentation at least, really punches above its weight class. The problem is the luxurious vibe writes a check that the rest of the car can't really cash. When you take a look at this thing and you see that it advertises a rear-biased all-wheel drive system, that it has a turbocharged straight six, you expect it to drive with a certain purpose and feel, and it doesn't. The engine is unusually unrefined, especially for a straight six. It's coarse at idle. It doesn't sound great under acceleration. It's powerful and makes this vehicle pretty quick. You know, we recorded 60 miles an hour in 6.3 seconds, but it doesn't deliver the smoothness and refinement you'd rightfully expect from a straight six. The transmission doesn't help either. We noticed quite a bit of clumsiness and clunking around town at low speeds as it engages and disengages. On paper, it's listed as an 8-speed automatic. In practice, it's still kind of figuring things out, thinking about things before it goes. And then there's the ride and handling. Most of us on staff thought the steering was too heavy, especially for it to be connected to a steering rack that's pretty slow. And the suspension is a tough time with the 21-inch wheels over rough pavement, which we have a lot here in Michigan. You feel every nuanced road imperfection, expansion joint on the freeway, and that doesn't make you feel nice and plush either. It's not just the driving dynamics either. This interior looks great, of course, but comes up short on day-to-day functionality. This storage bin right here is small and kind of shallow, and if you use the cup holders and this cubby space up front, that's basically all you get for storage. That's not a lot of options. And then there's the fiddly stuff. These are small annoyances that apart, are fine, but taken together, it's like the steady stream of why is it like this? For example, HVAC controls. Instead of having a toggle that's up for temperature increase, down for temperature decrease, it's down on both, which is just unintuitive. Ditto for the shifter, that if you want to take it out of park or put it into park, you have to move it laterally first, and that's something that literally trips me up every single time I hop in this vehicle. You might figure it out as an owner, but buyer beware. Then there's the heated steering wheel, which for some reason doesn't heat 12 o'clock, so that mandates 10 and 2 position during winter, and that's fine if you like being a passive-aggressive driving instructor. And lastly, the trailer brake controller lives a bit inelegantly off the left side of the lower dash, which is prime knee-bashing real estate for some body types. We also haven't started on the infotainment system, which frankly is just behind the times. You have to use it through this rotary controller. It's not a touchscreen unless you go to Apple CarPlay, and in that case, it is a touchscreen. But let's get out of CarPlay for a second, because a lot of our frustration comes from how everything's buried in menus. If you're using satellite radio, for example, and want to change to a station that is not a preset, you can't use the source toggle here on the steering wheel. You have to go entertainment, then you have to activate the menu, then you have to go channel list, and then you can choose through the stations. It's not just that either. If I want to see the tire pressures on the vehicle as I'm driving, I have to go in here, information, vehicle status monitor, vehicle maintenance details, and there. Now I see the tire pressures. This isn't great. At the risk of sounding like we're piling on, even the driver assistance features can feel a bit clumsy. The adaptive cruise control, for example, regularly taps the brakes on even gentle highway curves because the system can confuse where it's at in the lane and see vehicles that are in adjacent lanes and confuse those as being right in front of you. When the lane centering system does work, it frequently hugs the lane markings, and that can trigger the lane keeping alert, which is annoying and doesn't really inspire confidence. Over the course of 40,000 miles, we averaged 22 mpg, which is obviously lower than the EPA's combined rating of 25 mpg. It's actually one shy of the EPA city estimate. That doesn't seem great, but when you look at the context of other mid-size three-row SUVs that we've had in the long-term test program, it lines up. For example, the last Kia Telluride that we ran through this test averaged 21 mpg. The Toyota Grand Highlander Hybrid we recently ran through averaged 23 mpg. Our CX-90 was very reliable. For service, we visited the dealer 4 times, once every 10,000 miles, and that was for the usual stuff: oil change, oil filter, cabin air filter, tire rotation, and so on. Heads up though that Mazda calls for a brake fluid flush at 20,000 miles and a spark plug change at 40,000 miles, and that raises the cost of those services pretty dramatically. Over the course of our tests, we spent a little over $1,500 for all service-related costs. The CX-90 came with a set of Falcon tires whose name I'm going to butcher. I think it's ZIEX CT60A. We had to replace them at 25,000 miles, which isn't too surprising because they have a 300 treadwear rating, but that low rating combined with middling grip, we recorded 0.81 G on our skid pad, that combination is pretty disappointing. A replacement set cost us $1,100. Where does that leave us with the CX-90? Well, a bit let down, if we're honest. On the plus side, it was hugely reliable, it looks great inside and out, and it was a favorite on long road trips, even when towing. On the downside, we expected more from the driving dynamics and from the functionality of an interior that otherwise looks and feels so plush. The CX-90 isn't a standout midsize three-row SUV if you want the most dynamic joy, but nor is it a standout for somebody who's just looking for a functional, easy-to-use vehicle. That being said, if you like the way this vehicle looks, you can live with its quirks, and you want something that genuinely looks and feels upscale for the money, this can still be a perfectly acceptable family SUV. Just go in with your eyes open.